Now, starting WebXR for Enterprise, a speaker presentation by Jonathan Hales, CEO and CTO of Create Worlds, founded Wonderland Engine and Construct Arcade, now Hey VR.io.
All right, welcome everyone. WebXR is one of the most overlooked technologies for Enterprise XR, and I'm here to tell you about what it is and why you need to know about it. I am Jonathan Hale. I'm the founder behind the company that builds Wonderland Engine, and I've been working with WebXR for over 7 years now. I originally launched the world's first VR browser games platform back in 2018. It's called Hey VR today, and it's the place to play and publish free web-based VR games. If you tried any of the suggested links in the Meta Quest browser, you've probably been on Hey VR. So back when we launched it, we didn't want to launch an empty platform. So Florian and Zikchi and I built the first 6 games ourselves with various different frameworks. We noticed that none of them gave us the power that we were used to from Unity and Unreal Engine. So over 6 years ago, with my background in native computer graphics, I set out to build a bespoke 3D engine for VR, AR, and 3D on the web. And that's Wonderland Engine. And so since then, the team behind Wonderland Engine grew significantly, and it's the most performant engine for WebXR to this day. So now WebXR, what is that even, right? That's the first question I'm going to answer for you. I'm then going to go into how it works, and finally, show you a little bit about the development workflow. So what is WebXR even? WebXR, if you just take a point blank, is just VR and AR on the web. Today, it's being expanded to sometimes also mean 3D on the web, but I mainly mean that you have a headset on your face, you open a browser, and then you can enter this browser application, browser-based, this website effectively, by clicking an Enter VR button or a VR button, and then the world unfolds around you just like any immersive experience that you would run on a VR device. It could be AR, it could be a fully opaque VR, or it could be even running through your phone as augmented reality, tracking planes or tracking the environment or something like that. But effectively, it is VR and AR that uses browser-based technologies to be served or to reach your device. So why would you even do that? Using browser is like, there must be a reason for it, right? And there's 4 big reasons. The first reason is that the web is an open platform. You do not need to ask anyone's permission to publish. So you don't need to go through App Store curation or anything like that and wait for them to review your app before you can publish it. But rather, you can just upload your application to a web server, and then it's published. Nothing more to do. And when you do that, when you upload a web application to a server, you get a link, and that link is shareable. And so you can send this link just to anyone via chat or via email. You can have a QR code made from it, and then people can scan it, and they can directly dive into your application. And that makes it extremely accessible. So people just click on a link, scan a QR code, and they immediately get taken. Kind of like a Zoom link, right? You just click on it, nothing to download or install, and you're in the web-based AR application. You're in the VR application without any need to install or download anything. But now the 4th benefit, or the 4th advantage of WebXR is that it's cross-platform. You only need to deploy one application, and it runs on any VR headset. And in fact, you'll be hard-pressed to actually find a VR headset that doesn't support it. PlayStation VR is one of the few. You'll even find headsets here that aren't released yet. For example, I put spectacles here just as a little nod. But even before the Apple Vision Pro was released, you could build an app for the Apple Vision Pro by building on the web, because Apple Vision Pro comes out with a browser, is released with a browser, and it just gets access to any browser-based VR application out there. Same for Android XR. We just had the Samsung headset released, and now we can already play VR apps on it that we built with WebXR. But it doesn't go, it goes even beyond that. WebXR is not just cross-platform across any AR and VR device, but also across desktop and mobile. That means you can support the early adopters that have a VR headset, or the CEOs that you want to convince with your cool, shiny VR application, but you can still reach mass adoption by supporting tablets, smartphones, and desktop throughout the boat with the same application. No separate kind of launch into the App Store and then the iOS and Android store and then maybe on desktop and Windows and Mac and Linux, but everything is just one single application, one single link that you deploy, and it runs across any device. So that sounds a bit like magic. How does that even work? Effectively, the web is a big abstraction layer. Thankfully, the W3C has developed a standard that any website can use, and then browsers are responsible for implementing that standard and completely abstracting all the hardware differences, all the drivers, all the things that are underneath that, basically, that are specific to every device, and just basically expose a very common interface that everyone uses the same. So that starts with your app sitting on that web page, and it usually interacts with a framework. That framework might be Wonderland Engine, for example, or 3JS or Babylon.js, or many other frameworks out there. And these frameworks, they handle most of the boilerplate, loading 3D meshes, playing audio, and these kind of things. And they do that by interacting with different browser APIs. So the browser APIs are responsible for exposing functionality from the underlying drivers, for example, for rendering graphics, or for displaying images to the headset, or for interacting with files on the device, or Bluetooth, or USB, and so forth. Many different things that the hardware provides get exposed by the web API. For example, WebGL for graphics. We have WebXR for receiving the input of the controllers and displaying images to the device. We have JavaScript and WebAssembly to run arbitrary code. And that are all the building blocks that you need to build an immersive web application. Now, all of those are implemented by the browsers on individual devices. For example, you have Safari for iOS, you have Safari for macOS. They handle how to do these things on macOS and iOS. Then you have Chromium, which is available for a wide range of different platforms that understands how to handle graphics on Android, how to handle graphics on desktop and Linux, Windows, Linux, all these kind of things. All right, at this point, my past self can take over again. So how can you use this tech stack? Effectively, you will use a framework. There's various different frameworks out there. I'll get into the differences in a second. But what all of them have in common is that they produce JavaScript, HTML, CSS, GLB files, WebAssembly files, just a very specific set of web files that you can upload to a web host. And in choosing the web host, you're entirely free. There's thousands out there. You can go with the big clouds like AWS or Google Cloud or maybe DigitalOcean. You can use free hosting through GitHub pages or GitLab pages. You can go with Netlify. There's really unlimited possibilities out there how you can host these files. But the files are effectively your application, your bundle that makes your XR app or your WebXR app in this case. So I just announced, or I just mentioned, we're going to get into the differences between the different frameworks. You have one of three choices. You can go with code only. That means you'll literally be typing everything in JavaScript or TypeScript. Even the positioning of objects, you'll have to kind of put in 3 numbers and kind of move in space. It's still very, very popular for a bunch of people that come from the web space. So you might go with 3JS or A-Frame or Babylon.js, all very popular open source solutions. If you want something more visual, you can go with a cloud-based engine. Play Canvas here is the most popular solution for that. You will have to upload all your files into the cloud, into their servers to build your project, but you'll have a nice 3D editor where you can actually place objects and then test on your headset. And then finally, there's development platforms that you're probably most familiar with, like Unity, for example, and Wonderland Engine also falls into this category. So this is an application that you will download on Mac, Windows, Linux, and it is your 3D editor that allows you to manage your game scene. And you can additionally write some code with the code editors that you're familiar with. You can use Blender directly on the same device, export directly into the project, and all these kinds of things. That's kind of the hallmarks of development platforms like Wonderland Engine and Unity. So I'm going to go a little bit into more detail on one of these, and I'm not very biased. I just picked Wonderland Engine for no particular reason. Wonderland Engine is a development platform for VR and AR and 3D on the web. So it is an engine, a 3D engine that was built from the ground up for WebXR, with WebXR basically as the primary target. And so we have a particular focus that makes it exceptionally useful for VR, AR, and 3D on the web. So what does that effectively mean, focus on web? First of all, you use JavaScript or TypeScript. That runs in any browser out there already because it's standardized, but that also means that you can use any browser or web API that already exists out there. And the web ecosystem is vast. You can basically just npm install one of, I don't know how many bazillion libraries out there, and you'll get most of the functionality that you could imagine embedding into an application already more or less out of the box right there. You can integrate with anything. We also adopt the workflow mindset of the web. So when you make a change in any of your files, may it be the 3D scene or maybe a code file, then it will package the entire project, a fully optimized project, basically what you do in Unity or Unreal Engine as a full package export when you build a package. We do that in less than a second to automatically reload the browser for you and show the changes directly, so that you can have rapid iteration times and immediately know when you break things or what things look like. And finally, on the web, it is extremely important to optimize in a completely different way than native engines do. So we write everything from the ground up in C++ and compile it to WebAssembly, which gets around a bunch of limitations with garbage collection in JavaScript on the web. And we optimize our WebGL in a very, very particular way to avoid the most common bottlenecks that you usually encounter with the web. That might be draw calls and various other things down the line. So optimization is basically the most important thing that Wonderland Engine has to offer, because it allows you to focus on your application, on your actual app, rather than wasting a lot of time optimizing or having your art team worse, optimizing assets to make them somehow run on the web. So we just want you to drop everything into the editor and it'll just work. So what can you actually do with that? Well, first of all, you can do anything you can do with 3D on the web. That might be high-end configurators. In this case, we had a client of ours, Apache, who built Morgan Motors 3D configurator, which even runs on iOS, iPhone 10, and possibly even lower. So they reach the maximum audience with this configurator and allow people to switch out the colors of the car, switch out the car caps and the wheels and effectively everything. You can even change the stitches of the seats here. And Wonderland Engine powers the rendering to make it performant on all devices, including mobile devices, but also desktop. Then here we have a proof of concept of an Enterprise XR training running in Wonderland Engine on the browser. This is a proof of concept we did with Expert VR. And the idea is you can obviously, like any enterprise training, have the participant run through a series of steps to learn it more effectively than they would on a piece of paper. And this makes it really nice for distribution. You can just distribute this XR training by sending people a link. So if they have the headset at home, they can just open the link and they're in. You can even have it automatically connect with your servers for your learning management system and all these kind of things, and for analytics purposes. And so it's just a really, really good fit for WebXR. And then finally, of course, you can build entire games. We ported a Unity game that was originally published into the MetaQuest store called Dead Secret Circle, back when there was still curation in the MetaQuest store. And ported it to the web using Wonderland Engine. You can play it on our website on desktop, mobile, and VR. So on all mediums, basically. Just go to wonderlandengine.com, see what's possible. There's a button, see what's possible. Click on that, play the game, and see what's possible.
Want to check out more from the AWE Nite Orlando Immersive Intelligence Lab? Watch more talks and presentations from our incredible XR plus AI innovators. Thanks for watching, and please leave a like.
Nite Orlando.